What's up, guys? This is Matt with the Colorado Spirits Collective. We are here at Molly Brown Spirits, and I'm joined by Justin Lee. Thanks for having us.
Hey, thanks for coming out.
Yeah, of course.
Cheers.
It was a solid drive up here, so no worries.
You made it through the York Street construction, I see.
Yeah, the good old York Street construction, also known as a shit show.
Yes.
But we're here. So yeah, let's get into it and kind of tell us about how you got started and about yourself.
Well, sure. So I've been distilling since the mid-90s, really. You know, I started distilling in undergrad. I've always been a do-it-yourself kind of person, and when I started drinking bourbon, I decided I wanted to do that myself as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, it started as kind of a hobby, and then came out here to Colorado to go to grad school, and that hobby just kind of grew and grew. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, about 2010 or so, distilleries started popping up in Colorado. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I went out and went to a couple distilleries and realized that what I was doing in my basement was a lot more advanced that a lot of distilleries were running a business with, so I decided I better open a distillery. So I actually quit my job at NREL in 2011 and started my first distillery, J&L Distilling.
Okay.
It was a 50-50 partnership with another guy, and you know, those things very rarely work out, and we'll say we had creative differences and you know, decided to part ways.
Gotcha.
But
It happens.
yeah, you know.
Part of business.
Yep, you know. So, but at JNL, I actually met a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I met my my active partner, Steve. He was actually a volunteer at JNL. And then met a couple other guys who are silent partners here at Molly Brown. You know, we say silent, but they help us out a lot.
For sure.
But, you know, we put together the plan and started Molly Brown. So we actually moved into our current facility back in October of 2017. We signed the lease on this place and started building the whole distillery. It took us about 18 months to get the distillery built and start making bourbon. Put our first bourbon in barrels April of 19. And the whole goal was to allow our bourbon to at least be a year old before we released it to the public.
Nice.
So that was April of 20. I don't know if anybody's been keeping up on current events out there. Something happened April of 20, which kind of put a little kibosh on our plans.
I was going to say, I think both of us can relate to the kibosh on plans for sure for April of 20. But
yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of how you got started in the whole spirits industry.
Yep.
It is obviously March, so it's Women's History Month, which kind of brings us to why you guys chose the name Molly Brown. So kind of tell us about how you chose that.
Definitely.
Molly Brown Spirits, sorry.
So, so first of all, cheers to Women's History Month.
Yeah, cheers.
We appreciate that, and we appreciate all the women that are in our lives, and that none of us would be here without women, right?
True.
So the concept behind Molly Brown was we really wanted a idea that was both Denver and Colorado centric but recognizable nationally, and something that's not the same old. You know, 303, Rocky Mountains, 5280, all that good stuff. Something new and fresh. And we also really wanted to pay homage to the female figure and women in general, because plenty of women enjoy bourbon and whiskey, but whiskey's a boys' club as far as brands are concerned. You know, as Jim and John and Jack and Ezra. There's no ladies out there in the branding, and we thought it's high time to bring a lady into the branding and you know, let people know about the powerful women that are out there. Yeah. And what better female presence to represent Colorado and Denver than Molly Brown? Yeah. So that's the gist of Molly Brown. And to get a little more like drill down a little deeper, Molly Brown wasn't originally from Colorado.
Right.
You know, she moved to Colorado and kind of made a name for herself. And all of our founders here at Molly Brown, none of us are from Colorado.
Okay.
So we moved here to Colorado, and Bourbon isn't originally from Colorado. Right. So we decided, hey, you know, there's a lot of parallels there. So we're going to bring Bourbon to Colorado and make a name for bourbon in Colorado. And that's really the whole concept of Molly Brown.
So one of the big things you'll see like along the Molly Brown brand is that you guys are Colorado grain to glass. And you guys get all your ingredients from our good old friends up at Root Shoot. And you're going to talk about like why specifically Root Shoot and Colorado grains and that kind of thing.
Oh, 100%. So that's very important to us to be a 100% Colorado spirit. Mm-hmm. And we search for grain partners in the state of Colorado. There's not a lot of people that grow rye in Colorado. Mm-hmm. And rye is grown as a cover crop, but it's not really grown as a commercial crop. Most of the rye and whiskeys in the U.S. comes out of Canada, mostly. Yep. Has a very different flavor profile. But Root Shoot was one of the partners that we found that did grow rye in Colorado. Okay. And they also grow the corn and the malt that we need. And they are an excellent partner to work with. Yep. They have tons of acreage that they grow all their grains on. Because we want to be with Root Shoot not for the short haul, but for the long haul. We want to make sure that they are able to provide all the grains that we have. And, you know, Colorado grains are very unique because we get tons of sunshine, over 300 days of sunshine every year. And we have hot days in the summer, but really cold nights. So it makes a very hardy and unique grain. Yeah. And you can't get that out of grain that's grown elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So that's why we love the grains that we get from Root Shoot.
Yeah, cool. Shout out to Olander Farms and Root Shoot.
And 100%.
They're one of the best. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, they're good people too, which is obviously like the bourbon industry as a whole. So
Todd and Emily, they do a fantastic job over there.
Yeah, for sure. And then you guys have one of the most unique stills that I think I've ever seen. I got to climb into it here just a few minutes ago. You want to talk about like the inspiration behind like your process and your fermenters and your still and that kind of thing?
Oh, definitely. So, you know, a lot of places you see have very pretty copper stills, and, you know, I guess that works out for a lot of people, but we built this place for production. Right. We didn't build it for show. And we didn't have a huge budget. We had a very, very small budget. So we've made the entire distillery out of either reclaimed equipment that we have gotten from various places, and we built most of our equipment. Mm-hmm. And so our still is a 6,000 gallon pot still. That's our stripping still. We actually have a spirit still to separate our heads and our tails. We have two separate columns. But our stripping still, 6,000 gallons, and from what I've heard, that's the largest pot still in the United States of America. I haven't independently confirmed it, but that's what I've heard. So our stills started life as a dairy tank out of Wisconsin. That's what they used to use to store milk in and make creamery products. And we actually have 3 dairy tanks in the distillery. 2 of them are our fermenters, and one of them we've turned into a still. Mm-hmm. Everything is run off of steam as far as our distillation is concerned. And you know, even our other equipment, our cooking tanks, started life at a dairy as well, and we converted those. Instead of having chilled glycol running around the outside, we converted those to run off of steam to cook our grains. Cool. So not only are we 100% grain to glass, but we're 100% built by ourselves.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so we'll get into the lineup. We'll
Yes,
start
sir.
over here with the good old bourbon whiskey. You want to talk about that?
Do we make bourbon?
That's all you make.
Oh, that is all we make. Awesome. So yeah, we make two main bourbons. We make our standard bourbon and our high rye, and then we've got some variations over there. But let's talk about our standard bourbon. Standard bourbon is 75% corn,
Yep.
17% rye. The remainder is malted barley.
Cool.
A lot of bourbons out there are upwards of 90 to 95% corn. The reason why they do that is corn is very, very cheap. It's like the cheapest of all the grains out there. And, that's good for the bottom dollar, but, we like flavor in our bourbon, and corn doesn't provide a lot of flavor. So our main bourbon, our standard bourbon, 75% corn, and bring in the rye and the malted barley to have a lot more flavor. Typically, you wouldn't see a lot more than 5% malted barley in a bourbon, but bringing in that extra malted barley brings a lot more flavor.
Yep.
So a lot of people say there's some kind of scotchy flavors to our bourbon because Scotch is, all malted barley.
Right.
And we bring in that extra barley, and that brings more flavor to our bourbon.
Yeah, which the bourbon is definitely delicious. So,
Well, I'm glad you enjoy that.
oh yeah,
We should have a little taste of that.
yeah, sure. Cheers. All right, and then up next we got, I think it's the good old high rye.
That is the high rye.
Yep.
So bourbon by law, as any good bourbon drinker knows, has to be a minimum of 51% corn.
Yep.
And, we're going to adhere to that and make a bare minimum 51% corn bourbon.
Okay.
35% rye. The remainder is malted barley. So up the rye content, bring that malted barley content up, and it's going to be a much more bold bourbon. It's going to have a lot more flavor. It's going to be actually two whiskeys for the price of one. So you're going to start with a bourbon, get that bourbon sweetness, the caramel, the vanilla on the front of your tongue, but as you roll it over, you're going to actually transition into a rye. So you're going to get the spiciness and the more complex flavor of the rye. You tried it.
Yeah.
What are some of those flavors you got?
And that was pretty much exactly what you said. Like, I think I had mentioned it when we were in the tasting room trying it, was that I noticed, like, it drinks like a bourbon, but then there's like that extra little, like, I guess it wasn't little, but that extra that extra little punch of rye, but not like just like the too much, it's like the perfect amount of synchronization, I guess, of the transition, and it's delicious for sure. But
yeah, I mean, and we use Colorado rye, which is a very different rye than the Canadian rye that a lot of other distilleries use. So you get a very different flavor profile. You get some really cool notes there, like cinnamon, some more complex vanillas. Some people pick out cloves, maybe even a little anise in there, and that's very unique to a Colorado rye, as opposed to the most of the rye people will pick out black pepper. They're like, oh, that's super spicy and black peppery, and we really like the subtle nuances of the Colorado rye that Root Shoot and Olander Farms that provide to us.
cool, sweet. And then one of my favorite combos that I've tried to, well, it's not a combo, but your spiced bourbon is next. So
our spiced bourbon. So this is a new product
delicious.
that we just released. Right, Christmas Eve was actually our release date for the spiced bourbon. We were hoping to get it out a little sooner to be for the holidays, but supply logistics and all that. Our labels didn't arrive until Christmas Eve, but we got it out there and had it for sale Christmas Eve in the tasting room. But spiced bourbon is a very unique character. It starts out with our standard bourbon, but it's at 90 proof, so 45% alcohol. And as everybody knows, that bourbon is a very pure product. You can only add water to bourbon. Spice bourbon is, by definition, not a bourbon,
Right.
but it is a liqueur because it has a little bit of sugar added to it, so that makes it a liqueur, and a variety of herbs and spices, some that you might taste, or like vanilla, some cinnamon, some cloves. It's really kind of the flavor of the holidays, just brought to your glass.
Yeah, when we were tasting it, it totally brought me to like end of October, like Thanksgiving, like Christmas. Yeah, it was so good. And then that's pretty much all we started drinking.
Yeah.
So, cool. And then last we got the good old single barrel select.
Single barrel select.
Yeah.
So this is a very limited release product that we make. We're only going to do maybe 3 or 4 of these a year. But as we go through our barrel inventory, we taste all of our barrels regularly. And sometimes every barrel is very unique. It's like a fingerprint.
Right.
And it leaves its unique character and flavor on the bourbon. And when we find something that's truly exceptional, we say, hey, this is primed for a single barrel release, single barrel select. So we take that barrel and we serve it cask strength. It's typically 125 proof, so 62.5% alcohol, because Colorado is very unique in how barrels age.
Right.
So depending upon your particular climate, sometimes barrels will evaporate more water or more alcohol. Colorado is very barrel neutral, so we put in to the barrel our alcohol at 62.5%, because by law, to be a bourbon, that is the maximum that we can do, and it comes out of the barrel generally at 62.5%. So single barrel select, cask strength, 1 barrel only, a couple times a year.
Yeah.
The current single barrel select that we have is it's our very first release. It's the same as our high rye, so same mash bill as our high rye, but it's a year older. It's one of our oldest barrels.
Nice.
And we made 179 bottles. If you can find one, pick it up.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, and what I noticed was it doesn't drink like 125 proof. It's definitely much easier drinking, and it's definitely unique and delicious for sure.
Yeah, so that Kentucky hug is what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
You don't get the Kentucky hug.
Yeah.
You talk about the heads and the hearts and the tails. Typically, when a distillery makes bourbon and cuts off the heads and the tails and keeps the hearts, they're keeping about 90, maybe 85% of the total alcohol produced as the hearts that they put into the barrels.
Cool.
We only keep about 50% as the hearts that we put in the barrels. So it's a very smooth, clean bourbon that hasn't had any age. When it goes into the barrel, it's already clean and smooth, so the barrel doesn't have to work as hard. So when you're getting that cask strength, you don't really taste that it's cask strength. You don't get the fire and the burn.
Yeah, that's definitely delicious for sure. And that kind of brings us into the next like new releases and that kind of thing. What do you guys have coming out?
Well, next on the docket, we actually have a second single barrel select release. We weren't planning on having 2 single barrel selects right in a row, but the desire,
Market, clientele. Yeah.
The fact that we sold out of the first single barrel select so quickly and everybody's clamoring for it, we're going to release a second one, and we're doing a 100% corn on our second single barrel select release. And there's not a lot of bourbons out there that are 100% corn, and that's typically not a product that we make.
Right.
But when we were actually proving out our equipment here, we did several 100% corn batches.
Okay.
And we aged them up, and there's some truly exceptional 100% corn barrels that we have. So we're going to go ahead and release one of those. And that's part of our new distribution agreement with Eagle Rock.
Okay.
And so being part of the Eagle Rock family, we've decided to go ahead and do another single barrel select and release that 100% corn.
Cool. And then we kind of chatted about it before. You guys are going to do a barrel club.
Oh, yeah. So the Barrel Club is kind of a fun little thing that we're going to do here at the distillery. It's kind of your chance as an individual to own an entire barrel of bourbon. We're not talking about the 53-gallon barrels that we use, and that's all we use here to age our bourbon is 53-gallon barrels. But for the Barrel Club, because a 53-gallon barrel is kind of a little expensive, what we're going to do is we're going to barrel in some 5-gallon barrels.
Okay.
So we're going to make new make spirit, put spirit in 5-gallon barrels, and as a member of the Barrel Club, you can buy one of those little 5-gallon barrels. Put your name on it. That's going to be your barrel. We're going to keep it here at the distillery. Every time you come to the distillery, you can visit your barrel, you can taste your barrel, see how the age is going on.
Cool.
And then once you're happy with where your barrel's at, then we'll bottle it up for you. You take it out the door, and you get to keep the barrel. So.
That's cool. Definitely unique. And then, speaking of the distillery, where are you guys located and
for sure.
Tasting room, yeah.
So our address is 2300 East 77th Avenue, Denver, Colorado. We're just off of York and 78th Street is the closest street to us.
Cool.
Right now, York is under heavy construction. You perhaps might not be able to get here by the most direct route, but Google Maps is probably your friend.
Yeah.
We post updates on the construction on Instagram and Facebook to let people know when you can get here. We're working hard to stay open during the construction. Yeah. Sometimes we have to close because they close the road down, but just to keep your eyes open.
Yeah, for sure. And then you kind of hinted on it with the distribution through Eagle Rock. I know you guys just recently got with them about distribution. So where can we find you right now?
Excellent. So yeah, we just last week we signed a deal with Eagle Rock, and they're distributing throughout the entire state of Colorado, which is awesome. If you have a place that you would like to find Molly Brown, and currently we are not there, all you have to do is ask and tell them, hey, carry Molly Brown. Eagle Rock will bring them there, but we actually have a map on our website, mbspirits.com. It's a little link says where to find us, which has a link to all the liquor stores and restaurants that we are carried at.
Nice. Cool. And then you touched on it. You're on Instagram, Facebook, and then your website. What are your
all those little hashtags,
the tags or whatever you want to call them?
So website mbspirits.com, Facebook at mbspirits, and Instagram at Molly Brown Spirits.
Cool. Well, like I said, thanks for having us. I appreciate you accommodating on a closed day. Thanks construction.
Hey.
Molly Brown will be at SoCo Stillfest here in June. They will be part of Whiskey Wednesday coming up, and make sure you follow Colorado Spirits Collective. Instagram is CO Spirits Collective, and then Facebook Colorado Spirits Collective, YouTube, and then we just joined Patreon, which we will be forever grateful if you could sign up for that and help us continue to do this. So thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it.
Hey,
Cheers.
Matt, thanks for coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers.